Hello, friends, and welcome to episode number 114 of Nostalgia Talk. I'm James, and joining me today is the one and only Bryn McAuley.
Hello, I'm so happy to be here, and I see there's a Bugs Bunny.
Yeah, none of the listeners can see it, but yeah,
Oh,
you and I can. But yeah, there's a little Bugs Bunny plushie in the corner of my little recording room in here.
good
So,
job.
for anybody who doesn't know, Bryn is an actress who I think a lot of us know mostly for her work in the voiceover field. She has done the voice of Mavis in the Hotel Transylvania animated series. She was Quills on Numb Chucks, Becky on George Shrinks, Skye Blue on Carl Squared. She played the title character in the Anne of Green Gables animated series, was Franklin's little sister Harriet on Franklin, and of course, the title character in the iconic Caillou.
Yes, yes, that was my first job when I was 7 years old.
Nice. Well, how did you first become interested in acting in general?
My grandma was a writer, and I went with her to drop off a script at an agency in the olden days when we used to have paper scripts and deliver them to agencies by hand. And I jumped on the agent's lap, and I was very precocious and outgoing. And she said, "Do you want to go to an audition?" And I said, "Yes." And I was 4 years old. So that was my entry into acting. I'm come from a showbiz family.
Wow, so very outgoing right from the get-go.
Yes, very outgoing, very precocious. Yeah, please look at me. Please give me attention.
So was voice acting ever something that you kind of thought about? Because I mean, you said you started young, so like, what were you more interested in doing?
I didn't even know what voice acting was, I don't think. I was 7 years old when I got the audition for Caillou. The audition was actually for Rosie, his little
Oh wow.
sister. And so I went into the audition, I did my audition for Rosie, and then they said, "Hey, will you audition for Caillou?" And I was like, "Caillou's a boy." And at that age, girls and boys kind of sound exactly the same. So I did my audition for Caillou and got that job. And then that was my entry into the world of animation. And now it's my greatest passion, and I'm absolutely in love with it.
That's really cool that Caillou was like was your first one. One of my previous guests was actually Pat Fry, who
Oh,
by the way
yeah.
says hello. I told him I was going to be talking to you.
That's so nice. Hi, Pat.
And he had mentioned that you only did the voice for season one,
That's right.
which I
Yes.
didn't really realize because like I do a lot of research when I'm planning for these shows, and a lot of that research does require me to watch a lot of these shows. I mean, hence the name Nostalgia Talk, like taking me back to my nostalgia here. So I actually watched a little bit of Caillou to get ready for this, and the show did change over time. Like the Caillou I remember was an older woman reading to her grandkids.
Yes. That was the original. That was the first season. Or the first couple of seasons were like that. But
Okay.
yes, I moved cities after the first season, and they replaced me. So yeah, I lost. That was my first time losing a job when I was 8 years old.
Just learning all about the ins and outs of the industry right away.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's tough out there, kid. You better learn it early.
One of the things that I talked about with Pat, when I announced these shows on Nostalgia Talk social media, Facebook, Blue Sky, Twitter, you guys know where to go. Links are in the description. I always ask the listeners if they have any questions of their own that they'd like to contribute. And one of my friends, when I interviewed Pat about 2 years ago, actually texted me, and I should not be admitting this, but we're all older now, and she said to me, "Ask why you didn't beat Caillou with a belt." And I was like, "I'm not asking that."
Great question. Great question,
Yeah, I
friend.
mean, but I did kind of realize as I was preparing that it is very very hard to have a talk about Caillou in this decade without talking about the hate that Caillou gets. Because like I see a lot of memes online, like you're teaching my kid to be a spoiled brat, that kind of a thing. And Pat told me that the producers were aware of that, but they couldn't. But they decided that they weren't going to do anything about it because of the demographics as to who was watching, which apparently was teenagers, and they thought that they were looking for babysitter jobs.
Oh, wow. Pat has some real insight. I did not know any of that.
I thought it was really interesting. Like, I have friends who have kids who don't let their kids watch Caillou. They're like, oh, he just cries too much and complains too much. I was like, yeah, there's a reason for that.
Yeah, James, when I go to Comic Cons, people love to come up to tell me how much they hate Caillou. That's one of the most common things that happens.
Why would you go to a Comic Con and just go up to the person to say, I hate your character? Like, that's like, I just saw Nickelback not too long ago, and I'm
Oh,
thinking to myself, there's like 30,000 people here, so clearly they got fans.
yeah, yeah. People
And
love
people love to hate them too.
They do. They love to hate. They love to hate Caillou. And it feels like a victimless hate, you know? But yeah, people come up, parents come up to say, I was just in Newfoundland and a mother came up to say,
Oh, that's not too far away from me.
oh, really? Yeah, that's true, because you're in
I
Halifax?
am in, oh, I'm suburban Halifax.
Urban Halifax. Okay, Halifax adjacent.
Hmm.
Yes, but in Newfoundland, a mother came up to say, oh, I don't let my kids watch that brat. So, so yeah, people do love to tell me, like, oh, you're the voice of the demon child. Uh,
Okay, that's a bit much.
I agree. Yeah, yeah, no, he's very widely loathed and loved.
Hmm. Well, have
Mhm.
you ever watched This Hour Has 22 Minutes?
I have, yes.
Okay, so I remember they did when it was announced that PBS was not going to be doing Caillou at all. They did this parody skit where they had Trent McClellan play the head executive at PBS, and Mark Critch was doing Caillou.
Yes,
You saw that
I
where it was
have
like
seen
Caillou, you're fired, and the mom's narrating, and it's like, you want some advice? Stop bringing your mother to business meetings.
that. Yeah, people love to send me the Caillou spoofs. Family Guy has also done some really funny, really obviously Family Guy kind of brutal Caillou spoofs.
It's
And
funny because Pat had told me before that one of the things that he wanted to avoid when he was doing Caillou's dad, he's like, well, I wanted to make it like a softer kind of parent as opposed to Homer Simpson and Peter Griffin. I was like, yeah, they got to be the worst dads in cartoon television history.
truly, truly, yeah, they make fun of Pat they call him Caillou's beta dad, like that he's kind of like a soy boy, that he's spineless. That's that on Family Guy. That's how they frame Caillou's dad because they don't really discipline their kid. Like
Mm.
Caillou gets up to all kinds of things and he kind of doesn't ever get in trouble.
Well, the most pissed off I think I ever saw the dad
Yeah.
was an episode where Caillou wakes up early and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna get ready all by myself. Daddy will be so proud of me." And the dad's like, "Oh, Caillou, it's so early. What's the big occasion? Oh, I don't want to be late for the circus. Oh no, that's not today. The circus isn't until tomorrow." And Caillou throws a fit, and the dad's like, "Caillou, stop that. Come and help me make breakfast." Like all just kind of mad. The other time I actually saw him as a firm parent.
Hmm.
I actually do remember. I was telling one of my friends. So in my elementary school, we had this thing where they had some of the older kids reading buddies to the younger
Yeah.
kids,
Nice.
and my old reading buddy is now one of my best friends.
Oh,
Um,
wow. That's amazing.
yeah, McKenna. And I was telling McKenna that I remember reading Caillou to her, and the one I remember actually is from the show. And
Oh,
it's Caillou is eager to have chocolate pudding, but the parents are like, "No, you've got toys all over the place." And like I remember he comes to see his dad because his dad calls him. Mom's like, "Oh, that sounds really important." And the dad's like, "Caillou, what have I told you about leaving your toys all over the driveway?" And Caillou's got this guilty look on his face, like,
mhm.
I'm not supposed to leave my toys in the driveway." And the dad's like, "That's right," like kind of very firmly.
See, dad can go there. Dad
Mm.
can be disciplined.
I
It
do
disciplines the
remember,
boy.
I do remember bringing this one up with Pat, where because one of the things I thought about is when I was researching for both this one and the one with Pat is kids can be relatively stubborn. Some adults can be too. But I think when you grow up, you have a better understanding as to why a parent or a guardian would have to say yes or would have to say no.
Hmm.
And the thing that I thought about was Caillou gets a new babysitter, and he's like, "No, I want my old babysitter," and just
Yes.
decides that without knowing the babysitter, I hate her.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for sure, because kids also have emotional attachments.
Oh yeah.
So Caillou was attached to his old babysitter. But that's also a really good lesson for kids, change happens and you have to say bye to some people and embrace new people. So yeah, Caillou did have, it was educational, but I think it just kind of gets overshadowed by him having freakouts all the time. But kids have freakouts all the time.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, one of my, like, I have friends who still say to me, I don't like Caillou. He whines too much. I was like, yeah, well, we were children too. Odds are we whined too much at some point as well.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. That's why kids connect with it because they feel, that's how I behave. They see themselves, and parents are like, absolutely not.
Are there any Caillou moments that, other than the ones we just mentioned, that have really, stuck out in your memory? Because, I mean, so many of these are memes now.
I think the one where he doesn't want to take a bath to
Oh,
me is
yeah.
so funny because he he'll be fully in the bath and then leave the bath. Like he concedes to getting all the way into the bath and then he'll leave the bath soaking wet and covered in bubbles. And like this is
Ah, the water is wet! Science fact for the day. The water is wet.
water is wet, Caillou. And then Dad, Caillou, that tone, gets upset. I thought that episode was really funny.
So, did you actually ever have any interaction with Jacqueline Linetsky, the actress who played Caillou after you? Did you get to know her at all?
No, I never got to know her. I moved to Toronto,
Okay.
and they recorded Caillou in Montreal. So Jacqueline was Montreal based, and so I unfortunately never met her.
Okay. And for any of the listeners who don't know, unless you saw the interview I did with Pat, because Pat and I talked about her quite a lot, unfortunately, Jacqueline passed away, like, in the middle of production of Caillou.
Yes, she was in a car accident on her way to a film set. She was on a on-camera show as well called 15 Love.
15 Love, yeah. I saw something on Instagram, Canadian Nostalgia, and that was there, and I was like, wait a minute, that's the one that I was talking to Pat about.
Yeah, a lot of people thought that I had died. I had people coming to my childhood home to give my mom
Jeez.
condolences. It was a very interesting experience.
Yeah, that's one of the confusing things about when it's reported that a voice actor had passed
Mhm.
away who was known for doing a certain specific character. People don't really realize that they do recast over time.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, there's been so many Cailloux.
Hmm.
And Caillou's still on. There's a new Caillou for the first time. Caillou's played by a boy.
Ah, I did not know that.
Caillou is now 3D and played by a boy.
So the other show I brought up was Franklin, and I was a big watcher of that show too.
Amazing.
Um,
Yeah, this is nostalgic. You're nailing it.
what was that show like?
Franklin was so fun. I was working with Noah Reed, who people might know from Schitt's Creek. That was a blast. Yeah, it was fun to play. I think I was 11 years old when I played.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna ask if maybe it happened around the same time as Caillou, but and I mean, Harriet has a little less vocabulary than Caillou does.
Yeah, Harriet was younger than Caillou, but I was older when I played Harriet. Yeah, Harriet
Okay,
was a lot of like, you're silly, Flinkin. She kind of just giggles and
and you can still do a voice.
Harriet I can still do. Caillou I can't. I can't really get that sound anymore.
So you mentioned Noah Reed, and like my mom actually sent me something from Instagram. Which was, did you know that the voice of Franklin is now, I forget his character on, I gotta admit, one of my really good friends was a regular on Schitt's Creek.
Oh,
So
cool.
yeah, Steve Lund is his name.
Amazing. That's
Yeah, I
awesome.
just saw him actually just the other day. Now he's a semi-regular on Sullivan's Crossing, which is filmed out here.
That's so fun, James.
Mhm. Uh, so what was working with Noah like? Because now he's so big for this show.
Yeah, no, wonderful. We were similar because we were both kid actors. We both started really young, and no, it was super fun. When you're a kid, you don't really have, you kind of just have instinct, and you're just like imagining. So you don't really have craft and process the way you do when you get older and you develop a technique. So when you're kids, it just feels like you're playing. Just like a great time.
Hmm. It's funny. I have a friend who, like you, started as a child actress. Her name is Serena Berman. She actually went on to play Lucy on a couple of Peanuts stuff. She was a
Oh
guest
my
on this
gosh,
show.
that's so, what a great role. We love Lucy.
Mm. Oddly enough, her first role actually, I asked you, what was your first role? I always ask that, and she told me that her first role was at 4 years old, in a reenactment on America's Most Wanted, doing a murdered child. But she had mentioned that as a kid, she comes because they obviously can't work them too hard.
Yeah.
So she goes in her room. She's like, "Oh, there's candy and soda and every sweet possible." So as soon as she said, "Oh, it felt just like play," I'm thinking to myself, "You two would get along.
Yeah, yeah.
You
We
two
need to
would
have
totally get along."
a kid actor reunion. It's a blast. It's so fun being on a set as a kid. There's so much candy.
Especially in animation, the
Definitely, yeah.
character's all hyped up.
They do, but I remember when we did Anne of Green Gables, they used to have this big jar of gummy bears. And I don't know why they let us do this, but we would lick them and throw them at the glass between the booth and the control room. And they'd stick, right? And they just, over the course of the record, would just slowly fall down the glass.
And it never distracted the actors,
It was kind of a game because there were so many kids on that show
right?
that the voice director did with us to keep, because kids are crazy, you know? Like,
Yep.
you know, my mom is a voice director and works with a lot of kids, and she puts like squares of tape on the floor around the microphone and says to the kids, "You got to stay in this box because, you know, you're so hyped up. You're in there with a bunch of other kids, but you're working, but you don't really know
Mhm.
that you're working." So yeah, she just tried to do things to keep us engaged.
Yeah, I did a animation project.
Oh yeah?
My first, once I got out of film school, I was working on this show that was a mix of live action, puppets, and animation.
The
And
dream.
yeah, absolutely. And they just asked one of the production assistants, a short crew of production assistants, myself included, would one of you guys be willing to just do a test voice for this character, and which was a ghost, and then we'll just have someone loop it in. And then I read the script for the ghost. I kind of got into it in my head, and I was like, I want to do this character. So we actually recorded it live. So we were like in a cornfield, I think it was, and I got the mic over my head, and I'm just saying the lines into the mic, responding to the actual action, as opposed to, I thought we were going to go into a studio, but it's like, no, we have you here, so
Let's just do it, Ghost.
yeah.
Do you remember what your ghost sounded like?
So yeah, initially I had like a very ominous kind of sound for it, and they were like, okay, that's good. And then they tested my sound before we rolled,
Mhm.
and the director says, okay, James, just talking to the mic. What he didn't tell me was that he wanted me to do the ghost voice. So
Okay.
I went in and I went, is not an answer, which is something that Judge Judy says. And they're like, do that. And I'm like, I am not doing Judge Judy to play this character, but they wouldn't let me do anything else. So
Okay, so your ghost is kind of like a little bit sassy. That's a sassy ghost.
they had me ad lib as much as possible, which was fun.
How did you feel about that? Some people get really nervous when they have to improvise.
Well, they knew that I was good at that. So
Okay, yeah, you're a riffer. Podcast hosts know how to riff.
with Franklin, kind of like going back to what we were talking about with Harriet's, with the way that Harriet talks, like I of course remember her saying "Franken," like I remember
Yeah.
that. I remember an episode where you could tell that anytime Franklin and Harry were together, he's like, "No, I just want to be with my friends who are my age, like Bear." Or Franklin and Harriet were the only ones whose names were not their species. I just realized that.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true.
Like
Yeah.
Franklin just could have easily been named Turtle, but what would Harriet's name have been? Probably female Turtle.
Little turtle. Smaller turtle.
But they go to the park and not realizing that Harriet is very impressionable. Franklin's like, "Who left this stupid thing out here?" And she goes around saying the word stupid,
That's
like
a
teaching a
great
child the F word.
lesson. That's such a good lesson, actually. I have
Hmm.
so many friends with kids now, and it's really interesting. They're like, if you say a bad word, they're going to be saying
They're
it.
gonna want to, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
They're going to pick it up fast. So, yeah, thank you, Franklin, for that lesson. Very
Yes,
important.
Harriet just goes around stupid Franken.
That calling him stupid. Oh, Harriet, you little
Well, to be
mischievous.
honest, it was stupid of him to have done it.
It was stupid, Franklin. Stupid Franklin is. She was right. You're right, James. She was right.
So you brought up Anne of Green Gables.
Yeah,
Actually, can I tell you a little funny story about Anne of Green Gables?
please.
So, in the summer before my grade 6 year, we actually did a trip to Green Gables.
Oh, wow.
And ironically, part of our curriculum was reading that book, the original book. My teacher had us read it and then had us actually present what we knew about it.
Okay.
I remember there were three options, but for some reason my brain is only remembering two. One was, and they were all group based. One was reenacting a scene from the book, and the other one was an interview, kind of like this right now. So one person would be the interviewer, and the other person would be acting as the book's author, as opposed to one of the characters, to
Okay.
kind of research what we knew about Lucy Maud Montgomery.
Okay.
And I had just watched The Daily Show with Jon Stewart for the first time ever,
Love it.
thinking that that was actually a news show, like a legitimate news interview show.
Yeah.
And so I had this idea to do, very stupidly, Jon Stewart interviews Lucy Maud Montgomery.
What do you mean stupid? I would pay money to see that. Do you have it still? Can you send it to me?
So, oddly enough, once I found my partner, I pitched that, and he was like, that's not happening.
Oh,
Probably because he didn't know who Jon Stewart was.
sure, you were ahead of the game.
We were 11, and I feel so old admitting that. So, what we did was reenact a scene from the book, and particularly the one where Anne meets Gilbert for the first time ever. And he just has a little bit of fun with her, but she's all pissed off about it.
Were you Anne?
No, he was. I was Gilbert.
He was Anne. You were Gilbert.
Legitimate question, though. And then I actually remember after the presentations were done, we watched the movie version with Megan Follows doing Anne, which I totally forgotten about all of this until a couple of years ago when my step-grandfather passed away, and we had this day to just go to the house, and it's like, okay, we're selling the house. Anything you want, get it out of here. And I found a DVD of that particular Anne of Green Gables. And I think they had on it the animated Anne of Green Gables, which...
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I do remember in grade 6 watching that a lot. It was on Saturday mornings on CTV.
Oh, that's so nice. Yeah, Megan Follows is incredible. She's such a versatile, talented actress and extraordinary actress as a kid, too.
And like her anger as Anne, like when she smashes her slate over, like,
Yeah.
and my partner actually like made a noise with his like as he was doing it. He was like, "You mean hateful boy!" Pretending he had a slate. Slap. You couldn't actually do that.
Sounds like he really got into it.
Yeah, I think so.
Being Anne.
So what was that show like?
That show was a blast. That show was so much fun. Another Schitt's Creek cast member, Emily Hampshire, who plays Stevie on Schitt's Creek, she played Diana. So we were playing best friends. And who else was in it? Al McAdam. He's on, I'm trying to think like big shows that people would know him from. He's on a show called Spun Out. Anyway, we worked together.
Oh yeah, I interviewed somebody who was on that show.
Okay. He was also Elliot Moose. I don't know if people remember.
I remember Elliot Moose.
When he was Elliot Moose. It was a lot of kids, and we got to record all together. So It was a dream. And that was in the 90s, maybe early 2000s. And CD burners had just become a thing to like orient people in what era that was. But we would... Back in the day, in cartoons, you would record all together, and you would break for lunch, and they would serve you this like amazing, fun lunch, and then you would go in and do the second episode. So it was like all day, and it was a dream. I loved it. It was an absolute blast.
Have you ever actually been to Green Gables?
No, I haven't. I've never been to PEI. I need a tour guide, James.
I've only ever been there once. My sister's going to University of PEI in the fall.
Hey, what's she studying?
Psychology. She's getting her doctorate, I think it is.
Excuse me?
I'm still kind of learning how this works. Like, yeah. I went to a community college, so...
Well, great. I mean, any kind of education is great. Community colleges are great because you learn tangible stuff.
Suddenly, I'm wishing that I had a glass of raspberry cordial here.
Yeah.
instead of water. If anybody knows of Anne of Green Gables, you know what I'm talking about.
What are we doing with this boring water? Yeah.
But with Anne, just talking about the relationship between Anne and Gilbert and all these, and we've been talking about all the lessons that these shows taught us.
Hmm.
One that really sticks in my memory is where Gilbert, like they're taking some kind of test, I think it was, and Gilbert's got some kind of paper, and he hides it under his desk, and Anne just immediately jumps to the conclusion that Gilbert's cheating on the test.
Yes.
And she only just tells Diana and another person, but it quickly goes. Or this is like the earliest example of gossip before social media,
Mhm.
because of the time that it's set in. And then Gilbert's like, "Where is this coming from?" Then turns out it was just candy wrappers.
Oh yes, I do remember that episode. Yeah, wow. That's a huge lesson.
Hmm.
Not just about gossip, but about, jumping to conclusions and
Yeah,
accusing people of things and, hurting someone's reputation. Oh, it's kind of heartbreaking.
especially yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Anne was not only was Anne in the book, especially always kind of first of all, completely over dramatic in the original
Yes.
story. There were moments that she would just talk completely over dramatically. And as recently was rewatching that film version with Megan Follows, I was like, my God, this is a drama queen right here.
Yeah.
But I remember one episode of the cartoon where she wanted to have a party to watch the eclipse, but she was so hung up on it and so excited about it that she neglected her chores.
Yeah, I don't remember that one so clearly,
The
but
only thing I remember about that is that she was like getting eggs, I think it was, and it got on Marilla's face somehow, and that was the last straw for her.
for sure, that would be the last straw for me too.
Hmm.
Yeah, especially you got to do your chores first. That is an important lesson. 'Cause then also you can enjoy yourself more. Yeah, these
Yeah, it's true. You can enjoy yourself more after all your responsibilities are taken care of.
exactly because you're not just thinking like, oh, I got to get back early to finish my homework and yeah, make hay while the sun shines. Get your work done. Thanks, Anne of Green Gables. These are good lessons.
Well, here's a show that I watched only occasionally, but I remember it. Carl Square,
I loved Carl
where
Square.
you were Skye Blue.
Yes, I was Skye Blue, and I had to rap for that audition. That I just remember that so clearly because Skye Blue never ended up rapping in the show, but I had to rap. I had to do a rap about environmentalism.
Did you
For
have to like make up your own?
Well, here's the thing that happens a lot in cartoons. They'll give you the words, but they
Hmm.
won't give you the tune. So you end up kind of writing the song, kind of not. But yes, I did write I did it a cappella because they don't give you music. But yes, I am a big hip hop fan and I was a really big Jay-Z fan at the time. So I obviously wasn't good, but I just remember that audition so clearly and I loved her. I loved her because this guy has such a big heart. She loves animals, she loves nature, and she loved Carl.
Kind of reminds me because again, I didn't watch it a lot, but from how you're describing it, it reminds me a little bit of Gwen from Total Drama,
Yeah, Gwen was like edgier for sure, but
especially the way that she dressed.
yes, definitely, definitely. No,
And actually, another good friend of this podcast is Gwen's voice, Megan Fallenbach.
Megan's
Yeah,
amazing.
I actually just heard from her just the other day.
Oh, really? That's so
Yeah,
nice. Yeah, Megan and I have been friends for a long time.
yeah, she's awesome. Like
She really,
I love 16.
yes,
Jen was my favorite.
she's so funny in 16.
Oh
She's
yeah.
so funny. And Gwen is so adored. She's like canon, she's loved by so many cartoon fans.
Hmm.
Hmm.
The other show that I mentioned in the intro that I really liked and actually watched a lot more than Carl Square. I don't even remember much of Carl Square, um, other than seeing in the promo. Up next is Carl 2, but then hearing the theme song, it was Carl Square. I was like, what the hell is the 2 for? I didn't quite. I get it now.
Yeah, yeah.
Some kids might not understand it unless they've gone to math class.
No, they haven't learned exponents yet. That's a really good point.
Hmm.
It's kind of an advanced joke. It's like, yeah, Carl squared. It's a
Yeah,
good
they know
joke.
what a square is, but they
They
don't
know what,
know that the 2 is a square.
yeah, they don't know that that means duplicate itself.
Yeah.
So Yeah, it maybe could have been called Carl Cloned, but I don't know if that's a good title.
People know, well, they know what a clone is, so.
They do. Carl Squared. It's true. I never thought about that. It's kind of you gotta have
It's
done
clever
some.
because there are two Carls.
Yeah, but you don't do exponents until like grade seven, right? So yeah, you wouldn't know that
I
as
don't
a
know.
new
I think I didn't do that until like grade 5 or 6. I can't remember, but yeah.
exponents. You did exponents in grade. Halifax is advanced.
Hmm. Advanced math.
You guys are way ahead of us in Ontario.
Hmm. So George Shrinks, you played Becky.
Yes, Becky Lopez. Yes,
Hmm.
that show was really fun. It was the first show I recorded totally alone.
Okay.
Um, Usually up until then had recorded with other actors. So that was a good experience. I think I was maybe 12 when I played Becky. But
So a little bit older than Caillou, character-wise too, because I mean Becky's like a teenager, I think.
yeah, Becky was a teenager. Yeah,
Okay.
she was. She was. And that
And
was
I'm not just comparing her size to George's size.
compared to George, Becky was a giant.
So is his little brother. I'm like, because I rewatch these shows when I do my research, and like,
Yeah.
and I'm hearing the really really cool jazzy theme song, and I
Yeah.
remember the lyrics sort of well. Brother Junior's kind of tall. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, everybody in this universe is taller than George.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter whether you're older or younger than him. You're bigger than him.
His little baby, little toddler brother.
I think little's too nice a word.
Yeah. George Shrinks. Yeah, that was a great theme song.
Hmm.
It's a really good theme song. Yeah, that show was also really fun. It's my first time working with Merlan Ridley, who voice directors don't get a lot of shine, so I want to shout out the voice directors because they make us great.
They really do. Yeah. Actually, speaking of, another previous guest was Denise Oliver.
Oh, I love Denise. Denise is
Hmm.
such a sweetheart. And I've worked with Denise's daughter, Abby, on a show called Top Wing.
Well,
Denise,
that's cool. Yeah, she told me that her daughter was getting into that.
yeah, her
And
daughter's,
she's a fellow Maritimer.
yeah, she is. Yeah, she is. Salt of the earth. Good, a wonderful, wonderful person.
Mm.
And she has a YouTube channel now about her homestead, about her farm.
I'm gonna make a note to look that up. I don't remember her bringing that up.
Yeah, it's great. So she's doing such a good job on her channel.
Mm. So with George Shrinks, you said you recorded alone, but did you ever actually have like any interaction with Paul O'Sullivan, who played the dad?
I did because Paul was my improv teacher.
Okay, that's interesting. Wow,
Yeah,
small world.
yeah, totally. Paul was married to a woman named Linda Cash, who was the Philadelphia cream cheese angel, for anyone who remembers those ads. But
Oh yeah.
she's also a brilliant improviser, and they would teach improv at my school. So yes, I knew Paul from school and learning improv, but not from the show.
So you never actually worked with him at all when you were doing the show?
Not on the show, no, just in
Okay.
my school gym.
Were you aware of the fact that he was on the show?
I think so. Yeah, I knew it was Paul and Tracy Hoyt, and that's all I really knew about the cast. Yeah,
And Numb Chucks.
Numb Chucks, so silly.
Yeah, I've watched that. I think I watched that once with my friends' kids when it was like new.
Numb Chucks was fun because, well, this is when I started to get into learning impressions. So I had learned an
Ooh.
impression of Tommy Pickles from Rugrats. It was like, oh, it's okay, Chucky. Like he has this kind of sound. And I
That
started.
was good.
Thank you. I just started playing with like rasp a bit more. And then Quills was in a more raspy place than I had ever done a character because I had been playing with Tommy. Because she's like, welcome to Pinheads. Try the guacamole. It's in the bowling balls. So Quills was like inspired kind of from Tommy Pickles.
And the other one I mentioned was you took over Selena Gomez's character in the Hotel Transylvania series.
Yes, that was also very helpful that I had been learning impressions because Selena sort of sounds like this. Like her sound is like it's kind of froggy, and her voice has changed even more now. It's even Like her lip is very tight when she talks. But so I had to do that in the audition, and then I got the job, and then they were like, forget it totally. We don't want you to do an impression of Selena Gomez. We want you to do whatever, your own thing. So Mavis ended up not sounding at all like Selena Gomez, which is kind of funny. I don't know why. They wanted Dracula to sound like Adam Sandler, but they didn't care, or they weren't,
They wanted him to sound like blah, blah, blah. I do not say blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, yeah. But Mavis ended up more like closer to my natural voice a little bit. Yeah.
Well, I mean, well, that works.
Yeah, yeah. It definitely gave me a lot of freedom. Because when you're doing a voice match, you get so focused on just the sound.
Yeah, it's not always very easy, especially like when it comes to recasting characters. Like a couple of people who have come on this show have been with the Muppets, actually.
Oh, so cool.
And a couple of friends, Billy Barkhurst, he played Ernie for 3 years.
Oh, amazing.
And after that was Peter Linz, who's doing the character now.
Okay.
And like a lot of the time, when people think about these characters, they think about the voice. And I'll use Ernie as an example. It's like, oh, it doesn't sound like Ernie. They don't care at Sesame Street when they're auditioning. They don't care if you sound like the previous one. Can you do the character? And mostly, you have to study it physically as opposed to vocally.
Well, for puppeteers, yeah, that's a whole other thing. So much respect for puppeteers.
Yeah, and another previous guest actually was Bob Bergen.
Wow. Okay.
That was a very early one, was Bob Bergen. And the thing, the way that his mind kind of works with this is if you physically play the character, the voice will follow. And one of my friends actually sent a fan question to Bob, which is, how does this work for you? Are you given like a drawing, or do they just describe it? And he's like, well, maybe let's say they have a bit of an underbite. You extend your jaw and you give him a bit of an underbite, or maybe he's got a bit of a Jersey accent, so I talk out of the side of my face. Or maybe he smokes, and he's like really, really getting into it. But with what you were saying about doing an impression, especially a big celebrity like Selena Gomez, that's not easy.
No, it's not. And
it's not always easy to master at the same time.
Yeah, because you want to have all of the freedom in the play that you have in all of your characters, but you get really kind of focused on like, okay, is my tongue in the right place? Is my mouth in the right place? Like, and can I still have freedom and fun?
But my Brooklyn accent is perfect as Judge Judy.
Yeah, exactly. You did it in the cornfield. But to Bob's point, physicality is the biggest lesson for me ever as a voice actor. Like I play Baby Bop on Barney, and for her, it's all about having a tail. Like everything comes from her having a tail. And when I do an impression of Milhouse from The Simpsons, he has this really big kind of like overbite. So when
a little bit of a rasp.
Yeah, it's like, hey Bart, check out my new earring. I have to do this like big extended lip thing to ever get Milhouse right.
That was a good impression of Milhouse, by the way.
Whoa, thanks, James.
Talking about physicality, as I said at the start, you've done a lot of live action stuff too. But of course, I feel like all these cartoons we've been talking about kind of overshadows a lot of that. What is the biggest difference for you when you're doing voiceover against doing live action?
I think I feel so much more playful doing cartoons.
Okay.
I feel like I can't do anything wrong. Everything I do feels silly. Also, in cartoons, you're like, okay, you're a skunk and you own a hair salon. Or they're like, I
feel like that would lose a lot of business.
That's a really good point, James. We should have her working outside. Cartoons are just so silly, like I've played a cold sore, I've played a birthday candle, I've played, they're like, can you be a skeleton but you're sexy? Like cartoons are so silly. So in animation I just feel so silly, and that's what I love about it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, that's all I've got here. Is there anything you want to say to wrap up?
Thank you so much. It was so nice to meet you. You're so prepared. You're so organized. And I love your Bugs Bunny. And,
Well,
and
thanks, Doc.
that's pretty good, actually. That was pretty good. Mel Blanc fans in the house.
Hmm. Well, Bryn, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, James. Thank you for having me.
And to all the listeners, look, I know it's been a little while since I've done Nostalgia Talk. My apologies. Things have been incredibly busy on my end and on some of the guests' ends too. But as you guys know, for updates, you guys know where to go. The links to our social media is in the description. Just a reminder, I'm doing this as often as I can. When you're doing a podcast like this, you're doing it on somebody else's time. So you really do have to try and be cooperative. But don't worry, I'm not going anywhere for a long time. So I will see you on the next Nostalgia Talk, episode number 115. Until then, peace out.